Hello guys, we're going to talk today about solving one-step equations. So make sure that you have the correct note sheet. If you didn't print it out, you can do it on a separate piece of paper, or if I gave you one in class, you can use that as well. Just make sure that at the top it says 3.1, 3.2, solving one-step equations. So first thing here is, what is a variable? So a variable is a letter that represents a number. Okay, so in algebra, we are going to be dealing with variables. Usually we use x. So if you look here at the first problem, you have x plus 5 equals 8. If we want to use mental math here, understand you guys have been doing equations since elementary school. All right, it started out with us doing like, all right, if I give you 3 circles plus something equals 4 circles, how many circles should there be there? Okay, and your answer would be 1. It then went from putting numbers in there. 3 plus a question mark equals 4, and you guys could figure out that that was 1. And then you graduated to 3 plus like a blank equals 4, and again, you could say 1. And now it is 3 plus x equals 4. So understand you guys have been doing algebra since elementary school. This has changed just a little bit. So using mental math here, x plus 5 equals 8. So you're really asking what number plus 5 equals 8? And a lot of you guys can tell me x equals 3 here, because 3 plus 5 is 8. But our question is, how do I do this without using mental math? Because the problems are going to get bigger. So instead, we need to use something called inverse operations, okay? So addition, the opposite of addition is subtraction. And then multiplication, the opposite of multiply is then to divide. So these will basically undo each other. So solving using inverse operations then. So our first step here is to get all the single numbers on one side of the equal sign by adding or subtracting using the inverse operation. So x plus 5 equals 8. Here's my x. I want to get rid of, or should I say, I want to get the x by itself. So in order to do that, I need to move this plus 5. Well, the opposite of a positive 5 is a minus 5. So I need to subtract 5. Now, the thing to remember is that whatever I do to one side of this equal sign, I have to do to the other side. So it's one of the math rules. Okay, so sometimes I draw a line going down here at my equal sign to make sure that what I'm doing to one side, I also do to the other. So if you look, 5 minus 5 is just 0. So that all goes away. So on this left side of my equal sign, all I have left is an x. Bring down your equal sign, and then 8 minus 5 is 3. To check your work, you take that answer that you got and plug it back into your original equation up here. The original equation was x plus 5 equals 8. I plug in that 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 equals 8. That is a true statement, so that equation is true. All right, so let's move on and try some more examples here. Okay, we're going to go through a few of these, and I'm going to let you go on your own a little bit. So this first one, b plus 12 equals 31. We want to get the variable by itself. We have a positive 12. Opposite of positive 12 is to subtract your 12. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a minute to put that in the calculator. 31 minus 12, what do we get here? You should get an answer of 19. B equals 19. Okay, next one here again. You can do the check if you want to. I suggest you do your checks. I'm not going to be grading if you do your checks or not, but understand that there's really no reason to ever get these wrong if you're doing your checks. All right, so to do your check, you would take your 19 plus 12. 19 plus 12 is 31. 31 equals 31. Check, you're good to go. Right, the next one, things switch places a little bit, but again, the goal is to get the variable by itself, so I need to move this 24. So I'm going to subtract your 24. 24 minus 24 is 0, so that cancels out. bring down your C. Right now, when you're putting this in the calculator on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, excuse me, you have a -9 minus 24. So -9 minus 24, the calculator gives you a -33. All right, let's use a different color. So the next one, we're throwing in a subtraction sign. You got D minus 19 equals 20. Again, the goal is to get that variable by itself. So I need to move a minus 20 or a negative, or a minus 19 or a negative 19. To do that, we need to add 19. Add 19 to both sides, and you should get D equaling 39 then. All right. So if we look down here at the next row, you have a variable, but now the variable's on the right side. That does not change what we do. Again, the variable, we want to get the variable by itself. We need to move whatever is closest to it. We want to move a -6. Opposite of a -6 is a +6. So 6, a -6 plus 6 gives you 0, so that cancels out. All right, so you're adding 6 to both sides, you get -44 plus 6, so you get an answer of -38. Right, please do not switch this equation around, okay? Please do not write it as f minus 6 equals -44. Okay, I know for some of you guys this would be easier, okay? But in the long run, it's going to cause more problems because as our problems get larger, we're going to have to learn to work with these problems even if our variables are in different places. Okay, looking at the next one, yes, there's decimals, but again, does not change anything. So we need to subtract that 9.5 because 9.5 is positive. That cancels out because again, 9.5 minus 9.5 is 0. If you're ever unsure if you're doing the correct thing, plug that in the calculator. Does it actually cancel out? The whole point is for it to cancel out. So if you subtract 9.5 from both sides, you should get B equaling a 1.7. And our last one here, yes, there is decimals again. Just please make sure that you are keeping your decimal point at the correct spot here. Okay. So to get that variable by itself, we need to add a 0.08 to both sides. And when you do that, again, making sure that you are plugging it in the calculator correctly, you should get a -0.1 as your answer there. Okay, so this is your adding and subtracting again, just going through what it looks like, trying to get that variable by itself. Okay, if you flip your page there, all right, now we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing. So what is a reciprocal? The big word here is flip. Okay, a reciprocal is when you flip a fraction. So 3/4, the reciprocal of 3/4 would be 4/3. Okay. For example, the reciprocal of 1/2 would be 2/1. The reciprocal of -3. Remember, yes, this is just a number. This is really -3/1 though. So the reciprocal of that would be a -1/3. Okay, and if I would multiply each of these by its reciprocal, what would happen here is that all of these would become 1. Okay, all of these would become 1. So this is going to be important because yes, when we're multiplying or when we're dealing with multiplication division, you're going to run into some fractions. No, I do not want you guys to bring them into decimals. Okay, turning the fractions into decimals sometimes gets really, really tricky, okay? Because for example, if we get 1/3, that's really 0.3 repeating. There's no way to put 0.3 repeating in the calculator to deal with it as a decimal. We would have to use it as the fraction. So please do not change things into decimals. All right, so looking at this new problem here, we have 4w equals 8. So 4w equals 8. Not the one, there we go. Okay, so now sign. So your steps over here are multiply or divide both sides of the number from the variable. So the 4 and the W, there's really an imaginary multiplication sign in there. We had already said that the opposite of multiplication is division. So we need to divide everything by 4. 4 divided by 4 is really a 1. I end up with 1W. Okay? 8 divided by 4 then is 2. Now, as we talked about earlier when we talked about combining like terms, we don't really need the 1 out there. So that 1 just kind of disappears because we get a little lazy in math. So our answer is really W equals 2. Okay? And we can do our calculus the same way. Take your original problem for W equals 8. Plug in that 2 for the W. Remember, that's multiplication there. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 equals 8. We are good to go. All right, let's move on. So our next problem, 3.2x equaling a negative 11.2. Again, these are connected by multiplication. Okay, so you have to divide both sides by 3.2. Okay, take a minute, plug that into the calculator. All right, we should get a negative 3.5 as our answer. Okay, looking at the next one. Next one here, we have a fraction. This is where you have two different options. We talked earlier about a reciprocal. Okay, because remember, our goal is to get the variable by itself. But when you're dividing or multiplying, you really want to get a 1 out front there. Okay, even though we don't ever write it as a 1. So in order to make this go away, you have two different options. You can multiply by the reciprocal, both sides. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. Okay, and this whole thing here, this whole thing, that just goes away and that becomes a big 1. Okay, and that becomes a 1 that we don't actually need. So we can just literally bring down our t. All right, now, when we are going and putting this into the calculator, this 6 times 3/2, you need to be very, very careful. You need to put parentheses. So here are the keystrokes that you must press in your calculator. You must press the 6 divided by, or sorry, 6 times, not divided by, 6 times. And then you need parentheses. 3 divided by 2, and close those parentheses up. So again, it's 6 times, parentheses, 3 divided by 2, and close the parentheses up. And you should be getting an answer of 9. Okay, make sure that you're making note about what keystrokes you pressed on your calculator so that you know how to enter fractions properly. Because without putting parentheses around that fraction, you're not going to get the same answer or the correct answer all the time. Okay, looking at the next one, just very straightforward, 11x equals 66. The 11 and the x are connected by multiplication. So we need to divide both sides by 11. So we get x equaling 6 as our answer. Okay, I want you to hit pause right now, and I want you to go through the last 3 problems that are here dealing with multiplication and division, and I want you to try those out. So hit pause and try those, and then come back. All right, so hopefully you actually hit pause so that we can go through and check our work here. So this next problem here, yes, things are switched around. Again, the x is on the right-hand side. Please do not rewrite the problem. You just want to get x by itself. It's being connected by multiplication. Opposite of multiplication is division, so you're dividing both sides by -5. So x equals -19. Okay, same thing here on this next one. Yes, there's a negative sign. Okay, dividing both sides by a negative 0.002. So making sure you actually plug it into the calculator correctly. We should get y equaling a -15. And this last one, yes, there's fractions. Let's see if we did the fraction part correctly. So you have two options here. You can multiply by the reciprocal of -3/4, is negative 4 over 3. Negative 4 over 3. Okay, this whole thing here, that all just equals 1, so that goes away. You're left with x equals. Now putting this into the calculator again, anytime you put a fraction into the calculator, you gotta put parentheses around it. So it's really parentheses 6 divided by 16. Close those parentheses up, times parentheses negative 4 divided by 3. Close those parentheses up, and we should get a negative 0.5, or you can have a negative 1/2 as your answer. All right, now I do want to show you guys one other thing with this last problem here, because some of you might be looking at this and going, wait a minute. This was a negative 3/4, okay? Why? They're connected, the negative 3/4 and the x are connected by multiplication. Why am I multiplying again? Well, you do have another option here, and that option would be to divide. So there's really is a multiplication symbol here. Since there's a multiplication symbol there, you could divide both sides by a negative 3/4 if you really wanted to. All right, putting this into the calculator though, you would need parentheses 6 divided by 16, which is our first fraction. Closing the parentheses up, you need another division sign that represents this. And then you would need a negative 3 divided by 4. Okay, so again, if you put that into the calculator, and if you put it into the calculator correctly, with all the parentheses where they're supposed to be, you should get the same answer of a negative 0.5 or a negative 1/2. Either answer is perfectly fine. All right, so those are your notes for 1 and 2 step equations. You do have an activity to complete right now. So please go back into Google Classroom and go and complete that activity. Don't forget to show all of your work and submit all of your work in Google Classroom so that you can get those homework points. Have a good day, guys. Bye.